Hey, so March 1st, which means it's autumn. So I'm going to have a crack at planting Australian natives on the Victorian coast in autumn. So some feedback from my last video from my Swedish missus, who I mentioned wants lots of non-native plants, was that it was kind of hard to follow. So what I'm doing to start is I'm going to mark all the areas that I'm planting. I'm going to give them a name so then I can refer back to them. So the first one here is called Courtyard Colour. So it's on the outside of the fence there behind that tan bark. And it's an area of about maybe 10, 15 square meters where I'm going to try add some density and some color. So this is what it looked like when I bought the place with nothing at all there. Then we added the edging and a couple of little plants there, and then this topping and the sand pit, and now it looks quite nice. So I've got all these little ground covers and some large trees there. So behind the fence there, that's the target area. So this is just approaching it from the other side, the road side. Now I need to add some tan bark in there and control for weeds. And I've got a few mostly non-natives back there. There's a few little coastal tea trees you can't even see. This is the pincushion hakea. Now, unfortunately, it's actually dying from one end to the other. Foreign species, but still gives good coverage. So the first plant that I'm planting in here is also from WA. It's a red flowering gum, Corymbia ficifolia, grown from seeds that I picked. So it's a gorgeous plant. Let's pull it out and look at this gorgeous root system. These would be from winter. I've got a few of these, so I'm gonna just see how this one goes. This is a photo of the actual tree. Look how beautiful those flowers are. Now this is very indicative of all the soil on my property except for one area, which is this loamy sand. Very dry at the top and gets a bit wetter at the bottom, but otherwise okay. Now, I'm a bit of a liar and a coward here because I'm actually planting some French lavender, which doesn't come from France for some reason. Now, this is extremely easy to propagate from cuttings. You just put it in some soil and it does anything. So I planted them, I planted the Corymbia, and I really just want to get some color here. So maybe I can pull that non-native out in the near future. Second area I'm going to is Fairy Garden, called Fairy Garden because my missus and her boy, they planted this fairy garden in this wheelbarrow. I haven't seen any yet, but supposedly they have. So in this area, we've got some beautiful, bright little bushes. It's very covered. So this here is native violet of Viola heteracea. So I just took this off the runners off the footpath outside of someone's house. I chucked them for about 2 weeks in water, and in the dark they started growing roots and also new leaves. So I thought, you know what, in this area which does get quite wet and has a bit of shade, I put it there. This is locally indigenous, and so I love this one. Now, if you look it up on Wikipedia, though, it says, unlike Viola banksii, it is less spectacular, less robust habit, and less striking flowers. How rude, eh? Now, the next bit of feedback I received from the Swedish missus was that she got whiplash from the first video. And then secondly, that it kind of looked like I'd thrown my phone down the water slide. But hey, I guess every superhero movie needs its villain, and we've now found ours. As we move on to Secret Garden, which is behind Fairy Garden and also on the outside of the fence, this is where I've planted a couple of juvenile knobby clubrush, Ficinia nodosa. So they had really poor root structures and they haven't really grown. Now look at these beautiful ones. So I've got 6 of them here, which are up to about 300 mil in height and doing really well. The sun and rain over the last couple of weeks has really helped them along. So I'm going to plant them in this area now, and hopefully it kicks on because that's what I want to plant here. This area bogs a lot and it's quite dark, and so I think that this is the perfect plant for it. So look at the roots protruding through at the bottom, and as we pull one out we see it's got a great root structure. So I'm really confident that these ones are going to do well. So yeah, this is a very hardy plant, and I've got heaps more of these that I plan to plant soon enough. So let's chuck that in there, fill it in with some clay and water it. I got it in there nice and tight. Look how clayey this stuff is. It's the only place on the property that has this, and it's the low point, and sometimes it's just underwater for weeks on end. So this is the perfect plant for it. I find it so beautiful. The Swedish missus doesn't find it that beautiful though, but I guess that she can warm to it. This one here is not really that susceptible to frost, unlike some of the others, particularly the Corymbia. That's why I'm only planting a couple of them right now. So yeah, let's see how we go with this one. As we move around, this one's called septic strip. Now this is on the outside of the fence looking in. You can see the septic tanks and a big gap. Not too happy with that. So it's time to cover that. So I've put some berry saltbush here, or Atriplex semibacata, and also behind that there's a little drooping she oak, Alocaserina verticillata. Now, this is the zigzag wattle, not native to this area and potentially invasive, so maybe I'm being a bit of an idiot planting this, but these grew so well, so I wanted to put one down, and it gives just such beautiful yellow color. It is quite a lovely plant. It only lasts for about 20 years that I can cut it down at any point. So yeah, dug a hole for this one. This area stays quite wet too. It's also full sun, and this needs it because it actually originates from Queensland. Look at the beautiful root structure there. So again, I'm pretty confident with this one. This is a Coria Dusky Bells, which is a hybrid. So this one here I did by cuttings. I've had this for ages, like way more than 6 months. So let's look at the root structure. Pretty feeble. However, I've put other ones in with less roots and they're doing really well. So I'm pretty confident with that. So there at the end is the three of them that I've planted. There's the zigzag wattle, there's the Coria, and there are the Atriplex. So we're moving on to empty fence. So this is a whole fence line that doesn't have any trees, and that's why I've gone a bit gangbusters here and planted like 5 million trees. All natives up here, which is great. So some of these I've done from cuttings, some of them I purchased just because I just wanted something quite established to start getting real coverage here. It just gives me way too much exposure. I'm not too happy with that. And yeah, as I go along, so about 15 plants are getting planted today, and in about a month, once the rain's a bit more consistent, then I plan to plant a whole bunch more. So this is also at the top of the hill, and it dries out really quickly. So I need some hardy customers here and nothing too juvenile. So this is prickly Moses. This is definitely a locally indigenous species, Acacia verticillata. Also gives really some nice coverage, a little bit weedy. Shows how dry it is up at the top of this hill, but I think it's going to be happy there. I think it's a good choice for it. So let's look at the root structure when we take it out. How's it looking? Could be a little better, but it looks pretty great to me. It was growing very vertical, this one, so yeah, now there it is in there. So pretty happy with this one. I'll probably add a few more soon. Now this is Old Man Saltbush. This one here would be nearly 12 months old, and it's so weedy and it's done nothing. So I'm like, I'm just going to send you out into the wild and see what happens. Let's look at the root structure. As feeble as the above structure. So maybe the soil there was a bit too rich. I'm not sure, because these things grow in the most arid, awful conditions. So I've chucked that in. Let's see if it survives. This one here's called Timu Tank, where that terrible Timu edging is, and it's next to the tanks. So I've got a lot of open space here, and it gets a lot of sun. Those power lines are not as close as they look. So here I want to put a few big customers. First got locally indigenous coast Banksia integrifolia, which I absolutely love, and this is one of my favorites I'm putting in today. And I did decide to go with the Blakely's red gum. So we'll see how this one goes, because I'm not too sure, because this is from tableland, not the coastal area. Tableland is the flat high country, so it's a completely different ecosystem. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to put these in the ground. Beautiful root structure there, as you can see, quite woody and solid at the bottom there. So I think that we'll just see how this one goes. It's going to be an interesting test. And yeah, it's quite a beautiful plant. So, and then this is the coast Banksia. Let's just see how this root looks. Look at that, looks like a cake. I put heaps of perlite at the bottom there to see what happens, and the roots went through and they were so happy at the bottom. So maybe that had something to do with like having really good drainage and getting a really good result, because this coast Banksia is probably the one that's fared the best on my balcony. And I'm just happy to put that in. As I said, a local indigenous plant, so it's doing great. So yeah, now that's in this area. I'm probably going to put 1 or 2 big ones in. I'm unsure about what type of ground covers I'm going to put there. You can see some pig face in the back. Here, this is just a little bonus where I've just chucked some bower spinach cuttings in this plant bed, and it's done really well. So